So, you're telling me you want a trench? Bob asked, scratching his head, his brows furrowed in confusion. Bigger. I responded immediately, a grin creeping onto my face. Think medieval. Think defensive. Bob's eyes lit up with amusement. A slow, knowing smile stretched across his face. I like your style, he chuckled, crossing his arms over his chest. When do we start? The tranquility of my backyard, a place that once shimmered with the inviting blue of my beloved pool, echoing with the joyful shrieks of children splashing in the summer heat, was shattered by an unexpected eyesore, a bright orange flyer, carelessly taped to my mailbox. The garish color clashed hideously with the carefully curated backdrop of my flower beds, an unwelcome stain on my peaceful morning. Attention, residents. The bold, blocky letters screamed at me from the page. New HOA regulation, prohibition of swimming pools. I snatched the flyer from the mailbox, my stomach twisting into knots. A ban on swimming pools. The very thought was absurd, completely and utterly preposterous. My pool, a shimmering, chlorinated oasis of relaxation and summertime bliss, had been the heart and soul of my backyard for years. It wasn't just a pool. It was the lifeblood of my home, the center of barbecues, the site of legendary neighborhood pool parties, the source of joy for my family and friends. And now, according to this absurd new rule, it was an eyesore? Unacceptable. My gaze skimmed the flyer, my confusion intensifying with each line of bureaucratic nonsense. The HOA, under its newly anointed dictator, Karen. Yes, that Karen, had unilaterally decreed that all swimming pools, both in ground and above ground, were unsightly and disruptive to neighborhood harmony. I scoffed. Neighborhood harmony. My pool had created neighborhood harmony. It had brought people together, made summers unforgettable. What was so disruptive about that? Then I reached the fine print. And that's when my frustration turned to full-blown rage. This wasn't just about preventing new pool installations. No, that would have been bad enough. This regulation specifically targeted existing pools. Homeowners had a mere 30 days to remove their pools, or they'd be slapped with hefty daily fines. Failure to comply? Further legal action. I read and reread the flyer, my blood pressure spiking with each pass. This was outrageous. My perfectly maintained pool, my backyard masterpiece, was now suddenly an eyesore just because some power-hungry HOA president decided it didn't fit into her cookie-cutter vision of suburban perfection. This was a blatant power grab, an arbitrary rule meant to exert control over homeowners and enforce Karen's narrow-minded, micromanaging aesthetic preferences. And worse, I knew this wasn't just about pools. This was personal. This was a direct attack. On me, my pool, my pride and joy had become the latest casualty in Karen's never-ending war on fun. I stood there, gripping the flyer, the words burning into my brain, and then a slow, devious smile curled at the edges of my lips. Karen McDictator wanted my pool gone? Fine. She wanted neighborhood harmony? Even better. I'd give her harmony, a harmony she wouldn't soon forget. If I couldn't have a pool, well, I'd just have to think bigger. Much bigger. The idea, ridiculous and glorious in its sheer pettiness, sparked in my mind like a rogue firework. A moat, a massive, magnificent moat, encircling my entire property. It was absurd. It was excessive. And it was exactly what Karen deserved. The very next morning, armed with a large coffee and an even larger dose of spite, I set my plan into motion. Step 1. Construction. I called up Bob's Dig Moat, a local excavation company known for their discretion and their willingness to take on unusual projects. Bob himself, a burly man with a perpetually amused expression, met me on site. "So, you're telling me you want a trench?" he asked, scratching his head. "A big one." I confirmed, my grin widening. Think medieval. Think defensive. Bob's eyes twinkled with mischief. "I like your style," he said, chuckling. "When do we start?" The digging began the very next week. The excavators rumbled onto my property, their massive buckets scooping up dirt, transforming my once pristine lawn into a construction zone of epic proportions. Neighbors peeked out their windows, watched from their porches, whispering amongst themselves. Even Karen, Ever the nosy overlord drove by in her spotless white SUV, slowing down just enough to glare at the scene. What is he doing now? I overheard her mutter to a fellow HOA busybody. The passenger, unimpressed, replied dryly, "Looks like some kind of landscaping project." "A very large landscaping project," Karen sniffed, her nose wrinkling in disapproval. I simply smiled and waved, letting them speculate. Let them believe I was just rearranging some dirt. Oh! They had no idea what was coming. The trench deepened. It widened. It wrapped around my property like a fortress. And then, the water. I hired a water truck to flood the trench, transforming it from a mere ditch into a shimmering, reflective moat. The moment the HOA caught on, they lost their collective minds. A moat! Karen's shrill voice echoed across the water. "You built a moat. This is preposterous. This is unsightly." I finished for her, feigning confusion. "I think it's quite harmonious, don't you agree? Really ties the whole yard together." Karen sputtered, her face turning a rather alarming shade of purple. "This is a clear violation of something. We'll find a rule. We'll find a dozen rules." "Good luck with that, Karen," I said smoothly, a mischievous glint in my eye. "As far as I'm concerned, this is just a very large, very decorative, natural water feature." And just like that, the war on fun had entered a whole new level of pettiness. A moat. A glorious, ridiculous, completely legal moat. Karen and the HOA had no idea what they were up against.